All right, welcome back to Mixtape Stories. This is our second episode, and the lovely and talented Wayne Holtz has graced us with his presence for this episode. How's it going?
It's going so well, and honestly, it's a really honor to be here and honor to just hang out with you because I haven't seen Eric in such a long time, and so anytime I have the moment with you makes me really happy.
Likewise, it's always fun. It's always a pleasure. I feel like this podcast wouldn't be a podcast without you as a guest. So I'm glad you were here to bring your thoughts on music and TV shows and other things, which brings us into what we're talking about today. So every week, every episode, we kind of have someone come on, make a playlist of 5 songs, a mixtape, if you will, different theme. And one thing that I know that you are very into is Degrassi. And Degrassi has every episode of Degrassi is named after a song. So you took 5 songs that are titles of Degrassi episodes and made a playlist out of it.
And what's so interesting is Degrassi started in the 80s. Actually, technically, it started in 1979. And throughout the years, they named every episode after a song, as you said. And it's really cool because when Degrassi The Next Generation happened, they started with throwback songs as their episode titles, 80s songs, 90s songs. And then with a few of the ones that we're going to talk about today, whenever they moved on to season 10, they started moving on to the aughts.
Yeah, it feels kind of, there's so much about the song titles that they chose for. I mean, obviously there's in reference to what's going on in the episode itself, but there's a lot of there's a lot of layers to it too. And I kind of feel like having this, like the songs that they chose for this season, it feels like kind of a handoff into the next generation to where like they're now overlapping themselves because it was on from 2000 to 2015.
And that's what needed to happen. They needed to really integrate the new generation from the next generation, from the past generation.
There's like a new generation, and it's
the new. Yes, yeah. Exactly.
So what is your relationship with Degrassi? How did you get into it?
So I didn't have cable when I grew up, and so whenever I went to my grandmother's house, that was one of the main things I enjoyed. And the Inn, which is where Degrassi originally aired, is how I discovered the show. And it honestly was one of my favorite indulgences, if that's a word. And to me, it was awesome watching people of my age deal with things that I was also dealing with.
Yeah, I think that's something that I felt like when it came out, I felt like it felt kind of more like a kid's show. And then when I actually watched it, I was like, oh no, this is like totally a teenager show. I was literally the same age as these people on. Did you watch it live or did you kind of go back? Did you kind of start in the middle and go back?
I watched it live as episodes were airing. I was the same age as people like Emma, Manny. That's the age I was in that situation, and Drake was a grade above me. So when they were in 7th grade, when I was in 7th grade. When they were in 10th grade, I was in 10th grade.
It's cool to kind of go back and just, I mean, for one thing, the longevity of it, like we talked about, it was on for 15 years. And there are these different iterations with it within the next generation itself. I got into it retroactively. I was at an apartment. I was in a situation where I didn't have another apartment lined up. I had to stay in Austin for college, for summer school, because I needed to in order to graduate with the credits I needed. And I was moving out. I was very sad, and I was cleaning up, and it was on. A marathon was on, and that's how I got sucked in.
The Degrassi every episode marathon, I'm sure, was one of those. Yes.
Yeah. And I watched from, I only watched for probably like a period of about maybe 3 or 4 seasons, but I was really into it. And I did a lot of procrastinating from cleaning, just watching Degrassi.
Well, I will say, Eric, you are one of the, random people that is aware of the show in general. And even that level of watching is more than I encounter when it comes to people when I reference the show.
I feel like maybe there's just the bubble that we live in, but I feel like I know a lot of people that do. Like my wife, Sean, loves Degrassi.
Oh,
It's something that I feel that you guys have in common, that you can, like, if you get her started, she'll talk your ear off, and I'm sure vice versa. But yeah, I kind of stopped around a time, and it wasn't by choice, just because I was done cleaning. But like when JT got stabbed. That's kind of the last thing I really remember.
Spoiler alert.
Oh yeah, I mean the 20-year-old spoiler alert. But yeah, and it's so funny. At that moment, I was literally a junior in college, and I realized like, oh, like this is way more heavy than I was expecting it to be. I thought this was gonna be like, Disney Channel overacting, kind of, oh no, I forgot to do my homework type of shit, and then I'm like, oh, people are dying, people are getting pregnant. Like,
and I honestly love any moments that there is overacting. To me, that adds to the comedy of the entire show and really adds to like the kitschiness of the situation, along with the seriousness of the show.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to like coming up with this playlist itself, you chose 5 songs. When you were looking at it, were you looking at the topics of the episode or just the song itself? How did you come about making this list?
I was looking for recognizable song titles and episode titles. And so I wanted to bring to this podcast episodes that had song titles as the episode title that people would recognize.
That's cool. I think that the thing that I also love looking back at all the episode titles is that there's a very diverse range of music. Even going to these later seasons, I mean, you've got the ones that you picked are pretty popular songs, but then there's also one of the ones you picked is a little bit less common, but people know it. They just don't know the name. And then I look at, there's like spoon songs. There's like songs from like, different eras of music, but also different types of genres that go beyond just like straight up pop music. I think it's really interesting to see that diversity.
100%, and that's due to the writers, the producers of the show, because all those people are older and came from the 80s and have transferred over from the 80s generation of Degrassi. So they were bringing in their intelligence and things they like and bringing that to our generation.
Yeah. So going into the first song you picked, What a Girl Wants is the episode. It's a 2-part episode, Christina Aguilera song. Just kind of on a surface level, it's the episode where Fiona gets her boyfriend. I can't remember his name. Bobby.
Yes.
Piece of shit. I seriously am not familiar with The Next Generation, but my wife kind of filled me in on a lot of stuff, and watching this 2-part episode, yeah, that dude sucks. So yeah, it's kind of like, what a girl wants. She thinks she's in this like great relationship, and it kind of leads into some drama from a lot of stuff that should not have been happening.
Agreed. And to stray away from the songs for just a moment, that was season 10, which was right after when Degrassi was supposed to be canceled. And I regret not pitching the ultimate Degrassi song, which is Shark in the Water, as one of the ones we would talk about. But Degrassi was about to be canceled the season before this, and they decided to rejuvenate the entire brand, and that included rejuvenating the cinematography, upping the cameras, upping what they wanted to do in show. And so when we're seeing Fiona, as you were talking about, she is at basically a Gossip Girl school.
It felt very Gossip Girl.
It was the same time as Gossip Girl. And they threw in Christina Aguilera, and I love that.
Yeah, I think that it does feel like a reboot. It feels like something new. Even as someone who didn't watch it regularly from that point, it felt like a very different show. Like kind of, it almost felt like it was something that was years after it had been canceled or something, where it comes back and like, oh, Degrassi's back and it's different. But no, it's like just the next season.
And that's with the first season, because the all the seasons before, all the episode titles were songs from the 80s. And so season 10 is when they first started doing songs from beyond that, including What a Girl Wants by Christina Aguilera.
Yeah, so what is it about this song? Why did you choose this song in reference to this playlist?
I love Christina, and I will say that Christina and Brittany have such like a interesting history together. But when I was younger, I really admired Christina for her being herself. I felt that maybe Brittany was more of a a face of a situation, and Christina was being more of herself, and that's a personal opinion. And What a Girl Wants always drew me in.
Yeah, I think as a kid who was shrouded by like toxic masculinity of the time and listening to new metal and things like that before I got into like my punk phase or whatever, I kind of looked at both of them as just the same. I didn't realize the intricacies, how different they were. And I think that a lot of that is kind of intentional because Christina became, even though she'd been really doing music before, Britney really came out because she's got like the Mulan soundtrack, the song on the Mulan soundtrack. But they pitted them against each other. Like it was kind of you're either with Christina or you're with Britney.
And not just Christina and Britney.
Oh, yeah.
There was literally fucking Jessica Simpson, Mandy Moore. Yeah. They threw all of them in there. And that was really one of the interesting eras of music when it comes to who they were trying to create as a musician and create as a star. And Christina was the top billing next to Britney, who was number one. Yeah,
I think it's interesting just because I feel like from like before Britney really came out, I think Christina was wanting to do more like R&B type. I mean, still poppy, but like to a lesser degree. And she still did kind of do that, but she didn't have as much control with her first album. It was very manufactured. It is very put together in the sense that like they were putting together a competitor for Britney Spears.
And Britney was, honestly, all the people I just mentioned a moment ago, they just didn't want to dance, honey. You know what I mean? Like, Britney was the only one that was like, I'm an athlete, like, I want to dance. And nothing against the others for not wanting to dance and do choreography, but that's not who they were, you know? And it's unfortunate that they were forced into the boxes of archetype of Britney when they weren't Britney.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that, I mean, we are able to kind of look at the last 20, 25 years, and there has been this like poptimism kind of trend.
Poptimism.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal that.
Oh, that's the thing. I can't take credit for that.
I've never heard
that's
that.
The concept of where over the past 15, 20 years, and pop music has become less shunned for being capitalist, corporate, you know. I mean, most music is, so like it was kind of stupid to kind of yeah, but now there's more of an embrace. I mean, Taylor Swift has her success. I mean, she may be part of the reason why poptimism is a thing because people are kind of exploring beyond just these like manufactured, quote unquote, cookie cutter like types of industry pushed. I don't want to call them industry plants because Christina Aguilera is definitely not an industry plant, but I mean the whole push for.
I love a plant, and you know, honestly, Eric. I appreciate Christina Aguilera for who she is, and literally for the fact that she was showing things that Britney didn't have. What a Girl Wants really brings you vocals, it brings you nuance, it brings you a lot of attitude that Britney was not showing at that moment. And I really love that they were two completely different people, and what Christina brought to the arena.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's interesting about this song is that there are two versions of the song. There's the album version, and then there is the radio version. And the album version is a little bit more soulful. It's a little bit more. You can hear more of the R&B type of like. I think the drums are a little bit different. It's a little bit more hip hop ish. And then the studio version is a little bit more upbeat, a little bit more poppy. And then there's this whole section where there's like it goes into this like Baroque, very like medieval type of sounding, and it's very different. And I think there are people who prefer the album version or people who prefer the radio version.
Which one do you prefer?
I don't know. I feel like the album version is probably more what Christina wanted, but the radio version is interesting. Like that whole, I mean, in the music video too, you see where she goes into like this whole Baroque, like she's very like channeling, you know, medieval time stuff, or like, you know, aristocrat type of era stuff. But I don't know which one I prefer. I think that it's nice I think with the album version, at least it is a little bit more, it feels more like genuine, which isn't to say that this radio version doesn't feel sincere. It just feels like, oh, like it felt like kind of like an experiment, and it worked, obviously, but it didn't feel like that's what the song was supposed to be.
And you mentioned that's what she maybe wanted more was the album version. And I love that because we should have our way as artists.
And that's the thing, too. She didn't really get a lot of control with this first album. And I feel like that's something that has been on record a lot. And in her second album, I think she was able to get a little bit more freedom because of the success of her first album. The woman that wrote What a Girl Wants also wrote Bitch by Meredith Brooks.
Okay.
Which is kind of, it's an interesting.
What'd you call me?
It's kind of an interesting, like an interesting dynamic between the two songs. I mean, What a Girl Wants is a love ballad about having a man that treats her right. And this song was written, her name is Shelley Pakin, and she's very, like, you know, she's got a ton of hits with artists. She worked with Christina a lot. But it was about her and her husband were kind of living by coastal, I think. I think one was in New York, one was in LA. So they weren't seeing each other a lot, but she just wanted to like write a song to show like how much she appreciated him for appreciating her.
And oh, that sounds ideal. Oh, I wish I could find a man like that. You know what I mean? And I'll say someone who didn't or who has difficulty with men. Oh my gosh, that's not even the way I should say it. But thank you, editing. Because Kelly Clarkson just went through a divorce recently, and she was married to Reba McEntire's son. And so I think about her as well. And Breakaway by Kelly Clarkson is also another song that was an episode title of Degrassi.
Yeah, that's actually your second song. It's a great transition. It's also interesting, too, because Miss Independent was written for Christina, and she kind of did some edits to it, and then she turned it down for that album, and then the studio offered it to Kelly Clarkson. So that was on Kelly Clarkson's first album. So Breakaway is kind of there's a lot of similarities. And you hear Miss Independent knowing that, I feel like it sounds like a Christina Aguilera song.
I could see her definitely singing it. Yeah. But what I really enjoy about Breakaway is it was almost a transition between the Avril Lavigne era of life and the pop era or accepting pop and accepting things like American Idol and popularity, for lack of a better term. And so I love Breakaway. What a great song.
Breakaway is great. And I don't know if you knew this, Avril Lavigne wrote that song.
Did she?
Yes. That's a great.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, you hear it and it sounds like one of her, not necessarily a ballad, but it sounds like you compare it to, what's that song? It's off of Let Go. Not complicated, but
what's that song? I know.
One of her like slower songs on Let Go is it sounds very similar, and they just didn't find a space for it, so they pitched it to Kelly Clarkson, and she really liked it. It was recorded for the Princess Diaries sequel, Royal Engagement.
Oh Lord!
Which apparently Whitney Houston was producing. And she heard Kelly Clarkson and invited her to record a song for the soundtrack. But yeah, it was an Avril Lavigne song, and Kelly Clarkson took it, and it was supposed to just be a single. It wasn't supposed to be on the album, but it had such big success, and it came out really great to where they not only put it on her second album, they actually named the album Breakaway after it.
And rightfully so, because to me, it's one of the most gorgeous songs I've ever heard. It's one of my go-to karaoke songs. And Hold On is the one that it reminds me of by Avril Lavigne that I was thinking of. But I love that happened and that they put it in a Degrassi episode.
Yeah, and that's another. So the song itself is kind of about like being a small town girl going into like the next phase of her life. Kind of hitting it big, which Kelly Clarkson really related to, coming from like Fort Worth and going onto American Idol. And even though obviously there's a lot of work that went into this years before, it almost felt like overnight because of the success of American Idol. So I think that in reference to the Degrassi episode, this is where Fiona's breaking away from Bobby because Bobby's a piece of shit. And she kind of goes, I think, is this the same arc? Because it's a 2-part episode where she goes back to Degrassi.
Yes. They, at the end of season 9 and the beginning of season 10 of Degrassi, they kind of decided to really embrace the world outside of Degrassi, which included Fiona and Declan's private school, excuse me. And it was because that was at the same time that Gossip Girl was extremely popular. Shout out Claire I'm sorry, excuse me. Shout out Blair and Serena. And so they were like, oh, what can we do? But Glee was popular at that time as well. And they were trying to grasp at straws a little bit, but I don't mind that.
Yeah, I think that when watching it in hindsight, yeah, like I said earlier, like it definitely has this Gossip Girl feel. Even the whole, I mean, I feel like the whole dynamic between the twins, Declan and Fiona, is very Cruel Intentions-ish and very like...
Yes, and very naughty and more naughty than Degrassi had been before.
Yeah, Sean was telling me, he's like, oh, like Fiona kisses Declan. I'm like, oh, are they like step siblings? She's like, no, they're like full-on siblings. They're like blood siblings. It made me want to kind of go back and watch the whole like arc.
We're encouraging Eric to watch the entire situation.
Oh, yeah.
Degrassi.
I've got a whole queue of TV shows, and it's on that queue eventually. And just there's a bunch of other stuff I've been watching because I'm at the moment. But yeah, I think that in terms of how it relates to the episode, it is her like going back to her roots kind of in a way, and I think that the song itself too is very like saccharine. It's almost cheesy. I don't want to call it cheesy because it's not cheesy, but it is very like, it almost sounds like a worship song, like the way it's written, the way it's composed. And it feels very like coming of age, very like on this path to like womanhood or whatever you want to call it.
Right. And Fiona, who we're talking about right now, everyone, is one of the strongest characters in the later years of Degrassi. So if you are a Degrassi fan, you know Manny, you know Emma, you know Liberty, you know people like that. And if you haven't watched later seasons, which I encourage everyone to do, Fiona was one of the introductions that stuck around, and that was one of the strongest female characters. And she deserved not only an episode like that, but also one that really like represented her growth, because she was one of the most she's one of the people that we really got to see in different stages in her life.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the longevity of people on the show and see how long they lasted. And I feel like
she was one of the people that because they flunked a lot of the characters on the show just so they could keep them around. And she was one of them because she was so popular. She was a fan favorite, great actress. Annie Clark, shout out to you. And so she was one of the ones that they literally flunked on purpose so that we could have her around even longer.
What is your relationship with the song itself and personally in terms of like, why did you choose this song? How do you feel about Kelly Clarkson in general?
Well, I chose this song because I grew up without cable. And so things like American Idol were really pivotal when it came to my growing up and things that I viewed and things that inspired me and influenced my life. American Idol was something that not only took over the world, but especially if you didn't have any other options, it was something that you were super focused on. And Breakaway, like I said, is one of my go-to karaoke songs, but one that's been influencing me since I was a kid. And to me, it's so heartfelt and it's so strong, and I just love the vocals on it. Yeah,
I think that in doing the research for this episode, specifically the Kelly Clarkson section of this episode, I've always liked Kelly Clarkson, but I feel like she might be the most underrated pop star of our generation, of our era as millennials. And I think that she definitely was able to kind of fight off the stigma of being like a quote unquote like reality star. And I feel like that's a lot harder to do now. And people have done it, of course, but like, I don't know. It's hard to think of Kelly Clarkson without like synonymously thinking of American Idol.
Of course.
But at the same time, that doesn't define her either. And I felt like she had hits on her first album, and then Breakaway was her like real big, like, this is who I am.
Hits, Eric. That entire album is full of bangers. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not just hits. Whatever we heard on the radio was only the tip of the iceberg. Honestly, not only from her vocals, but the songs that were given to her. Incredibly done. And ones that are, to me, extremely heartfelt and catchy as hell.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. And when we were doing cover stories, we talked about Since You've Been Gone a lot because Max Martin wrote that song, and he wrote it because he heard Maps by Yeah Yeah Yeahs and was like, this is a great song. It's a little too alt for me, so I'm going to write a pop version of it. And Since You've Been Gone is the same exact format, just in a pop version. And Kelly Clarkson kills it. Like it's one of those things that's really, once you hear it and hear them back to back, you can totally see that. But I never knew that until I read about it.
I'm gonna have to re-listen.
Yeah, there's I don't know if you know Ted Leo. He's one of my favorite artists. He did like this acoustic cover of Since You've Been Gone, and in the middle of it, he put Maps like as a bridge. It was really great.
Wow. And for everyone listening that doesn't already know this, Eric, who is the person I'm speaking to right now and the host of the show, is an expert on music. So any little advice or tips that he gives you, please take them.
Just music culturally. I can't record. I know basic.
You're a historian is the way
there you
I
go.
would.
Yeah. Because I know music. I have elementary music theory. Beyond that, I'm learning from like podcasts and my friends. But yeah, I think that, Kelly Clarkson, we talked about Christina and how, the powers at hand kind of positioned her in a Britney versus Christina type of element. But Kelly Clarkson she comes later, obviously. And I felt like had a lot more free reign. And, there's a lot of like, she had a whole dispute with Clive Davis, the president of CBS or
great teeth.
Yeah. So she fought for a lot of what she wanted to do, with a lot of control. And you hear it too, because she's got such a diverse taste. She's got a talk show now, and she covers a song at least one song every episode. What
an intelligent plot! Like what a map out for a show.
Yeah,
that is so smart.
And honestly, it just feels like it's her having fun. I don't even think she's doing it as anything other than like, hey, I love these songs.
She's not being strategic, but I'll tell you, my mom doesn't like a lot, and she watches Kelly Clarkson every single day.
But it's interesting because the song she covers, like, it ranges from pop hits. She'll do like Dolly Parton. She'll do, she's probably done like Britney Spears before, but then she'll do like indie hits and like old like 90s alt rock hits. Like she recently had Weezer on and did Say It Ain't So. And it was great.
Amazing. I would love to hear her voice do that. And, speaking of indie hits, like Imogen, Heap, Hide and Seek, what an indie hit.
Yeah. That's the next song, Hide and Seek. I have always liked this song, but digging into it, it's made me realize that I kind of love this song a lot. I feel like this is going to be a theme of this podcast. It's for those who aren't aware with the title, this song is synonymous with the OC. If you watch the OC, was it season 2, I think?
Probably 3, maybe 2 or 3. I'm like, when did? Probably 2, yes.
Yeah. So there is a part that has been parodied where one of the main characters shoots and kills somebody within a fight. So
Misha Barton.
Yeah, Misha Barton's character.
Iconic.
And this song plays throughout this section of the show, and it was parodied on SNL with Andy Samberg and Shia LaBeouf.
The love of my life, by the way.
Andy Samberg?
Yes. Lord.
Tell me more about this Andy Samberg.
I'm like, if you want to ask me about my celebrity crushes, Andy Samberg is at the top of the list. The gap in that tooth, girl. I'm here for it. Okay.
Gaps had a thing in the mid 2000s. I feel like Haley.
Are they out?
Well, Haley Williams. I mean, no, I'm saying like that was the first time when I was like Haley Williams has a little gap, and like there's that was it like a L'Oreal or Revlon commercial. I think it's Mick Jagger's daughter. I think is the model in it. But,
I believe it.
Yeah. But
you're so right. Hide and Seek, and you mentioned the fact that it was parodied on SNL. The OC was so pivotal when it came to curating music and sounds and taste in that era, in those years. And Hide and Seek was so pivotal, in my opinion, and what an important part of the show. And I mean, when you think about the OC, I immediately think of the soundtracks, the CDs that I used to buy whenever they would come out. And they really had some of the best music and influence a lot of the stuff I listen to today.
Yeah, I feel like Indie Sleaze was going to happen regardless, but like Indie Sleaze owes a lot to the OC because of Josh Schwartz picking these songs. I want to say he handpicked them. I felt like he had like playlists for Josh Schwartz is the creator of the OC. He had like certain songs picked out for certain aspects of the show. I mean, Def Cat for Cutie like owes a lot of their success, not their success, but a lot of their mainstream popularity.
You're apologizing for it, Eric, but I will say it. They can send a thank you card.
They probably have. I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm sure they have. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging, a boost in your situation, no matter how talented you are.
Yeah, and the thing about people, I was listening to, conveniently enough, I was listening to Jake Goldsby, who was on Degrassi, has a really great podcast called Columbia House Party, where they kind of look at an album from their youth or from just albums that they love, and they talk about it. But they had an episode that was just about the single Hide and Seek, and they were talking about how people forget that earlier in that season, I think it was maybe the first episode of that season, there's a funeral for a lesser known character, and the song is playing, but it's just not that hook that's playing in the murder part.
Jake Goldsby would be the one to notice that.
Highly recommend this podcast. Like, it's so fun, and he's just so. I feel like I've learned a lot. I've used that podcast, Columbia House Party.
To that?
Oh yeah, I use it for research a lot because they go into depth. It's a lot about like what they liked about the album, but also the details and facts and things like that, and the fun facts of it all. And
Jake Goldsby, who we're talking about, played Toby on Degrassi, and he's one of the most underrated characters, but a great actor, and I love that.
Yeah, and bringing that into Degrassi, this is Hide and Seek is an episode where Allie runs away and she's hiding, and her family doesn't know where she's at, and it's the obvious hide and seek. She's hiding, that's the part of where it comes from. But the song itself is said to be about Imogen Heap's parents' separation or divorce. And there is a lot of tension with Allie. One of the reasons she runs away is because of the tension she has with her parents and the disappointment they have in her. So bringing those layers into it, I don't know if that's intentional with the title of titling it that episode Hide and Seek, but I feel like there is some reverence there too, being able to tie those themes together.
I feel like the Degrassi producers or whoever chooses the titles for the episodes has a little bit of thought, like you're saying, and maybe sometimes a stronger input, sometimes a little bit like, oh, let's just throw that in there. But I think that's definitely an appropriate one.
Yeah. So are you into Imogen Heap at all? Or like, is this just a song itself?
I love Imogen Heap. And honestly, I discovered Imogen Heap whenever I discovered dancing and my love of dancing. And so like listening to all their music, her music, excuse me, and both projects, Imogen Heap and Frou Frou Frau Frau, however you want to say it. And so I'm very much here for the Imogen Heap of it all. And what's interesting also, random little fun fact, is that that song, Hide and Seek, was featured on The OC, starring Rachel Bilson. Rachel Bilson was in a movie called The Last Kiss, directed by Zach Braff. So that song was on that soundtrack, and Zach Braff created one of the most iconic soundtracks of all time for Garden State. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, Frou Frou is on Garden State's soundtrack with Let Go, and that's a song I've always known Frou Frou, but I never could associate like the song, and I've heard Let Go so many times. I listened to it, and I was like, oh, I know this song. But yeah, I've always associated Hide and Seek with the fact that there's the OC aspect of it. It was also sampled in, I think it's a Jason Derulo song.
Yes, bow down to Jason Derulo.
So it's kind of interesting how much it has transcended over the past like 20 years. I mean, its song was in 2005, so it's almost 20 years old. And the thing about that song that I feel people either forget about or just it's been a long time you've heard it isolated is that it's just a vocal song. It's just nothing but like vocal and digital harmonies. She's not using a vocoder from what I understand. She has her keyboard plugged into a digital modulation, and she's harmonizing herself while she's singing. So she's adding chords of her voice it's really amazing. Like,
it's one of the most impressive songs I know, and one of the ones people are so, as I'm sure everyone knows, silence is not appreciated right now, and that's one of the main reasons that song is so beautiful, is because it cuts out the music, it cuts out everything else except for her emotions and her voice, and that's all you listen to. And to me, it's one of the most mesmerizing things I've ever heard.
Yeah, I listening to it just like isolated alone. Like, this is like what vinyl I feel is made for. I feel like I want to now, like, even if it's just a single, I want this on vinyl just because You can hear every aspect of it, and it's just her voice. I mean, it's her voice amplified with these harmonies, but it's haunting that sometimes it's really easy to forget that it's just her voice.
And do you know who I love to listen to on vinyl?
Who's that?
Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga. We will get to Lady Gaga in a second, though. I do need to bring up, though, that with Imogen Heap, she's actually created these gloves that allow her to control these harmonies on stage without having to be hunched over a keyboard. And I think that's super interesting, and I feel like that really just kind of extends her as an artist. And yeah, going to Lady Gaga.
But I will touch base on that. That's really interesting to know. I didn't know that. And I don't think I've ever watched her perform. I've never looked at a video of her actually singing and doing her thing. So I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, they're called Mimu gloves. She actually she's quoted as like the brainchild of, I don't know how involved she was with actually like manufacturing it, or if it was just an idea or if it was a little bit of both. But yeah, I think that, taking that, being able to, I mean, that's something that I feel like a lot of artists don't think about in terms of the stage presence of things. Like it's no one's going to bat an eye if you're like over a keyboard. Like that's what people do. But the fact that she's able to do this, not being punched over a keyboard, and being able to kind of, express herself through her hands while making music with her hands. It's something that I feel a lot of artists like Lady Gaga have kind of incorporated into like these new ideas and kind of taking performance to the next level. You like Lady Gaga on vinyl. Do you have any Lady Gaga?
I actually own 3 Lady Gaga vinyls, Born This Way, Joanne, and Art Pop.
Which one is your favorite to listen on vinyl? I feel like Joanne's got it. I mean, I think Joanne's an underrated album as what it is, but I feel like that's made for vinyl.
Well, I love all of them, and I never look down on any work that she's put out. In general, she is my number one. For anyone listening, come for me. I'm here for it. But I also appreciate her faults. But to me, Art Pop is the best one to hear.
Oh, yeah? I think that, I mean, we can't have a podcast with you without talking about Lady Gaga. I feel like it's synonymous. Just going off of like what I know about you and your performance as an artist, there's obviously a lot of influence. You chose Love Game, which is another title of an episode of Degrassi. What is it about this song specifically? I mean, this is one of her earliest, her third number one single. She was the first person since Avril Lavigne to have 3 number one singles in a row.
Okay.
And Love Game was the third one. I feel like this gets lost a lot because Just Dance and Poker Face were so huge, and this is like kind of just tacked on. This is like, I don't want to call it like the cherry on top, but this is just like, whatever the opposite of beating a dead horse, like. But
it is the cherry on top, cherry boom boom. When it comes to Lady Gaga, and Love Game is such an interesting and beautiful song, and I just love the wordplay. One great thing about Gaga is the wordplay, the way she writes her lyrics, the way that she really like comes at you and almost like slaps your face through the radio. And whenever I saw that was on the list, I said, okay, we got to do it.
Yeah, I think, the wordplay, the one big thing that comes out of this, no pun intended, is the word disco stick, or the term disco stick. And it's one of those things you hear and you know exactly what she's talking about, but it's also something that I don't think I've ever heard anyone reference, a penis as a disco stick. And in a Rolling Stone interview, she, they asked her like point blank, like, where did you come up with this? And she said, this is just from dancing. She's at a club dancing with some guy, and, she said it, and it just kind of came to her. And yeah, I think that this song is probably the most provocative of these first 3 singles. And it's something that really, Poker Face, I feel, is what kind of...
Because I feel like Poker Face is the more provocative one, but...
Well, when you know what it's about, like it's...
I remember the first time I heard that song, I remember exactly where I was at. I was in the passenger seat of Nathan Pugh's car, and we were on Calabria just passing Grissom and Tesla or some shit like that, heading towards Taft, and it was on the radio, and the chorus came on, and I was like, she's saying butt fuck her face. Do you hear this?
Yeah.
The first time I heard it, I was like, do you hear this?
I didn't realize that till about maybe a year ago, that fuck her face. Like, I never associate. It's something probably like I might have said jokingly, like while listening to it, but I didn't realize that that's literally what that's literally what she's saying. And
she credits Kiss Radio or Kiss FM for being the only radio station in the world to censor her and tell her that she had they couldn't play that song because they were like, excuse me, we know what you're talking about, ma'am. And so she calls them the most intelligent station in the world.
Poker Face is, I feel like it's less blatant because of that. It is, I don't want to call it subtle because it's not subtle. It's just more underlayered in that sense. I mean, it is obviously a sexual song. Like Poker Face is about, putting on a poker face, to make her partner feel like they're doing a good job, right? Like that's...
Yes. Okay, well, I have to ask, do you have a Gaga song that you enjoy?
Yeah, I like Gaga a lot, and I feel like my brother has been a big reason why.
Okay.
Did you not know this?
I did not know that.
My brother is like the biggest Lady Gaga fan who you wouldn't expect to be a Lady Gaga fan.
Wow.
No, but I mean, I feel like Poker Face is great. I feel, you can't go wrong with Shallow. It's hard. That's a lot of recency bias, obviously. I don't know. I don't know if I have like a favorite necessarily, but I've always just liked her as a person, as an artist. And
are you excited about Joker 2?
I'm interested. The first one was fine.
I'm excited. Maybe I shouldn't. But no, same. I'm very ready to see what is coming towards us.
I feel like I'm more interested in it because she's in it. I like Joaquin Phoenix. Todd Phillips is okay, I guess, as a director. But it's really interesting casting, and not because it's her, but just because of the type of movie it is and the type of movie the first one was. And the fact that it's a musical, I feel like I'm definitely interested. I don't know if I'm excited about it necessarily as so much as like I want to see what this is, like what happens.
That's all I need.
But yeah, I mean, Love Game, the fact that, Disco Stick is very blatant, as a term, and as this is exactly what this is about. The song itself is about, from what I understand, it's about her wanting to find somebody to hook up with at night, but isn't sure she wants to play that game of like the back and forth and all that. Is that correct, or is that close to what it's about?
No, definitely correct. And Gaga is one of those people that is super strong when it comes to what she wants and letting you know, but also is a very vulnerable person. And so that it's, as you said, kind of about the back and forth, about romance in general.
Yeah, and I think the music video is great. It's something that, and there's obviously like a lot of sexuality to it, but there's a very like love letter to New York, and I feel like those are two things. There's a lot of camp, and that's just Gaga in general. She's just like the queen of camp when it comes to pop music, as of right now at least. And
where's the next one?
I'm just saying, like I don't want to like discredit anybody else, but yeah, I think that it's very provocative, and I feel like maybe that's probably a part of the reason why I forget about this song, because it gets overshadowed because it's so provocative. I think there's certain countries that wouldn't play it because of how provocative it was.
They wouldn't, and you maybe forget about it because she has such a long-standing career and so many songs and so many things that she's done, and that was so long ago. But I'm not a Gaga apologist. I will say when she makes a bad song, no, I'm not naming any names.
So that this is this song is also the title of a Degrassi episode, as all these songs are, and
this is the one that I don't remember what episode this is.
So I can't remember her name. She was the one dating Eli. Broke up with
Claire.
Claire broke up with Eli, and she's.
Oh, okay, yes.
She's weirded out that he's taking it fine. And there's this iconic line from the last 3 months not mean anything to you, which is it's funny as an adult, but as a teenager, I'm sure like I've had those exact feelings, after a breakup. But yeah, the Love Game, it's in reference probably to the fact that she broke up with him, and then she's mad that he's not upset, and like that's kind of like, are their feelings still there?
And Claire and Eli are one of the most iconic Degrassi characters, and honestly also teen soap characters or couples of all time. They were not allowed to not be with each other, except for when they weren't, and so that was a really powerful moment for the show and for the fans. And her going off on a rant and saying those lines is one of the most memeable and funny things that we get from Degrassi.
I need to put my wife Sean on blast because she had a huge crush on Eli.
I mean, who doesn't?
I just wanted to put that out there. I felt like she has a lot of aggression towards Claire. I don't know why. I'm sure once I watch it, I may understand. Not aggression, but she's had a lot of negative feelings about Claire, and I don't know if it has to do with the fact that she broke up with Eli.
Claire is a very strong character, and she became like it was her and another one that became the main situations, and people just kind of got annoyed with her. There was a lot of Claire. And her seasons, starting in season 10, they started doing 44 episodes a season. So like we saw a lot of Claire.
That
and Eli.
blew my mind. I feel like, I don't know if it's just different with Canadian TV shows, because I haven't really watched any beyond this that I can think of. But 44, when I saw like this is episode like 30 or whatever, but then I realized like these are half-hour episodes. A lot of them are two-parters. So if it's an hour-long episode, it's the equivalent of 20.
Yeah, it goes by like that. Watch it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too. I like started watching. I'm like, I'm going to watch a few tonight, the ones that you chose. And then by the end of the night, it was only like midnight, and then like I was almost done. So I'm like, I might as well finish. They're only half-hour episodes. And I was watching them with commercials on Freevee.
Hilarious.
But when I think of this song, I feel like I always think of a video that you were a part of in high school.
I'm listening.
I don't know if it was for like a video production class, but it was a music video for this song.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And that's all that's in my head every time I hear it. And I feel like I knew this song, but like I always associate it with you. And was this something that was done for a class, or is it just for fun?
No, I was just like randomly inspired in making music videos. It was after I graduated high school and I didn't have an outlet at all. And and Gaga inspired me so much. And so I was just making random videos, and Martin, aka Firecrotch, was singing songs and covering them, and was a prominent personality on MySpace. And so I said, hey, can I make a music video for you? And so I did that, and it was cute, and we filmed it in Heidi Whitus's house.
Our video production teacher.
And it was and so look it up. Look up Firecrotch Love Game, and you'll see the things I directed.
So Firecrotch is interesting just because I don't know if you are familiar with someone a little bit older than him, Carlton Douglas, who created Vagina Water Park.
Do I know Carlton Douglas? Is that your question?
So Carlton Douglas went to our high school, to the high school that we were a part of. We went to a magnet school.
If y'all listening, I don't know if you know, but Eric, who is your host today, and myself went to Communications Arts High School together.
So Carlton Douglas, Communications Arts is on Taft campus. Carlton Douglas went to Taft. Amazing musician, amazing like musical mind. He had a project called Vagina Water Park. And I don't know if you know this. He went to Berklee School of Music in Boston. His mom found a flyer from a show that he was a part of. He was the headliner. Lady Gaga opened up for him at that show.
Wow.
I don't know if it was like an open mic situation, but her name is on this. His Vagina Water Park's name is on the same flyer as Lady Gaga.
That is amazing. And really, like, even though because Eric and I went to Communications Arts High School, which is a magnet school located on Taft High School. Carlton went to Taft. But I really just like always think about how many talented people we were surrounded by in high school. And so that story is amazing and on point.
It was probably in 06, I think, because he was there from, I think, 06 to 07. So yeah, this was like right before the Fame, probably a year before the Fame came out. And really, like, it's just so crazy to think about a point in time where she was playing a show like that, like a smaller set show, that much, or like that close to this album coming out.
Those live, you have to pave the pavement, you know what I mean? And like hit that fucking pavement. So she worked hard. I'm proud of her.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know. And that's another reason I just like her as a person in general. And I feel like her hard work shows, not just in her like talent, but like in her performance. And, you know, the fact that she is an ally and she's somebody who is not afraid to speak up and really empower people, I think is really, really admirable.
The last thing I will say is that I enjoy Gaga and her music. I really do. But the thing that I enjoy the most about her is listening to her speak, not sing. And so I would say any opportunity you have to watch an interview with her and listen to her theories and the way that she goes about life, I highly suggest it.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, any interview I've watched with her, she says the most with the least amount of words. It isn't to say she doesn't say a lot of words, but she doesn't need to. I am the opposite type of person where I will say 30 words. I would say like a bunch of 30-cent words for a 10-cent idea. And I feel like she's always the opposite. Like she really is efficient with what she says.
We love listening to all of your words, Eric. That's why we're here today.
Appreciate that. So it's really hard to transition to this next song, this last song. But Duncan, your last song was Duncan Sheik's "Barely Breathing." This is a song that came out at the end of 1996. I always associate this song with the local radio station Mix 96.1 because I feel like it was a pop rock crossover, but in hindsight, it just feels like mom rock, which is not a derogatory term. It's just that's just what it reminds me of. It reminds me of like going to the grocery store with my mom, and this was playing in the background.
So cute, and you know I always like tell people, and by the way, you're listening to Wayne Holtz right now. And when it comes to Wayne Holtz inspirations, I love dad rock like no one's business. But thank you, Eric, for throwing that term at me because mom rock is real. And that makes sense because he was a beautiful guy that made beautiful, calming music to escape from all you shitheads of the 90s that they were raising, you know, and honestly, to me, this is one of the most beautiful songs, and I love music like this Matchbox 20, you know, these are Creed, these are like the kind of songs that I really grew up with, and that really gave me a lot of emotion when I was younger.
Yeah, it's a song that, I mean, it's technically a one-hit wonder. I don't even know technically. I think he literally is a one-hit wonder. He is a one-hit wonder in that sense, but he's also, I don't know if you know, he's like a successful Broadway composer now.
Okay.
He wrote for, I want to say it was the American Psycho Broadway. I want to say he's won some Tonys. He's a very successful composer now, and it's just so interesting to see like what people associate him with because I mean, to me, he's always this guy that had this song, and a
lot of people don't even know his name.
Yeah. Duncan Sheik is also very like, it's his real name, but it feels very like Hollywood changed name type of situation. But Sheik is spelled Sheik instead of Chic, but I feel like that's a perfect stage name, even if it was a real name. The song is interesting. This song is always like effervescent, or it's not effervescent. It was always omnipresent in the sense that like I was very much aware of it, but I didn't really become like into it in a sense until I think I was in 6th grade in 1999, and I was it was in band, and I bought a book, like a fake book, and the song was on it, and it showed you how to play like the melody and stuff. So I've always associated that. It had like the guitar chords on the top and everything. So every time I think of this song, it reminds me of learning how to play it. I don't know how to play it now, but like I remember that time.
I love that. And speaking of learning how to play, this song was the title of a Degrassi episode starring one of my favorite characters of Degrassi of all time, Maya, who was a songwriter and a singer on the show. And she was learning how to do her stuff and transition from cello to guitar and to singing around this era.
Yeah, so this episode is about there's some cyberbullying going on. She finds out who did it. Ava is the other, or who's
I don't remember.
Can't remember the girl who she found out. She thought they were friends, but they weren't, and she was mad about something. So she wrote like a hate song for her about how she wanted to kill her.
Yes, I'm losing my Zoe. It was Zoe. And we're saying, so if you're a Degrassi fan, by the way, if you're listening, and if you found us because Degrassi came up on your search feed, I would say, and you haven't seen these later seasons, I highly recommend watching these years, especially when people like Zoe, who we just referenced, Maya, who I'm talking about, they're so interesting, and the corniness is real, but you get a lot of true stories, and Maya, who's my favorite musician of Degrassi, of the entire series.
See, and it's because you chose this one was season 13, I think, and because there's like 80 episodes between this one and the other one that we talked about, I didn't get to see a lot of the arc, and I think there was even a point I'm watching and I'm like, when did they start wearing uniforms? And Sean's like, you missed a boiler room episode. I was like,
thank God those uniforms only lasted 2.5 seasons. Okay. But that was actually not even a Degrassi thing. That was a Canada thing. Oh, yeah. All of Canada, all schools in Canada started wearing uniforms. It was a countrywide rule, and so the show followed along with that. But God, those yellow polos, I can't.
The sweaters were cool. I like the cardigans. Those were very like Hogwarts. He's
lying to you.
No, they're very like Hogwarts, like 70s varsity jackets.
Messy.
But yeah, I mean, what is it about this song "Barely Breathing" that you kind of identify or like that you like?
I really love the heart. I also love the subtle and chill transition in between the emotion throughout the song. And I love the good lyrics, because when it comes to, for anyone listening that doesn't know, I'm a performer. And one thing that's really important to me when it comes to music is the lyrics. I appreciate them more than what the song sounds like. And I feel like Barely Breathing really is... it has a strong energy and tells a story, and I love that. And Maya, who is the star of this episode on Degrassi, tells so many strong stories throughout her arc on the show, and so I love it so much.
It's I feel like there aren't a lot of songs out there that are like now on radio that are as, I mean, this feels like a poem. Like, I mean, all songs are poems essentially, but
you're talking about the fact that they're all bullshit.
I don't know. I don't want to like go that
What's
far.
What's the last song you heard on the radio that you were...
This is going to make me sound like super pretentious.
I don't
listen to the radio. And there are songs that have come from the radio that I like. I mean, I don't get me started on Olivia Rodrigo. Sean asked me if I wanted to go to see her. I'm like, I'm going to be oldest person there, and it's going to feel weird. And I feel like I'm going to be put on some lists that I shouldn't be put on.
I hear you though.
But I like her music because it's a throwback to 90s alt rock that I kind of grew up on. But yeah, I feel like this song is it's literal, but also very poetic. It almost feels like something you would write in high school, and it's not like an insult. It's very to the point, but also the metaphors are very easy going, and also there's stuff that I feel just feels very it feels more profound than it probably was meant to be. Like saying, yesterday was a day that you probably think yesterday was a day I was born. Like instead of saying you think I was born yesterday, being able to like maneuver that around, it's obvious, but also like it just works. Like changing it around makes it feel a little bit fresher. I don't know. It
works, and it was right in the pocket of that era of things just working. And when when there were different genres that we were fed in general. But honestly, the reason I love this song so much is because it helps me relax. This is that era between him and Matchbox 20 and things like that. I really just am able to breathe and chill and back here, baby, shit like that. You know what I mean? Like songs like that, it really soothes my heart.
Yeah, I mean, this is the mom rock era. Like I feel like Matchbox 20 kind of gets thrown in there. Train was a little bit later.
Love Train.
I think even to an extent, the Goo Goo Dolls kind of had like a mom rock. They have mom rock songs. I don't know if they'd be a mom rock band. Sugar Ray.
Don't get me started on Mark McGrath, okay, honey. Okay. So when are you going to do a Glee episode, Eric?
A Glee episode? I don't know.
I'm just saying, let's throw that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, we'll bring you back for the Glee episode.
Or someone else, if anyone else watches it but me, Lord.
We can see.
I'm a solo fan over here.
I think Glee kind of jumped a shark for me after the Super Bowl episode.
Makes sense.
It felt like it stopped being about. This feels so dorky talking about this in this term, because I started watching because it's like these ragtag, like it felt like the Mighty Ducks with choir, like with Glee. And then it reached a point where it just got like too big for its britches, and it went on like for several seasons, very successful. People love it. I just couldn't be as into it.
And I want you to listen to me for 1 second. I want everyone to hear me when I say this, okay? A lot of people hate on Glee because they're singing other people's songs. By the way, do you like karaoke? Excuse me, you're singing someone else's song. Do you like I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston? That's Dolly Parton's song, bitch. A lot of the songs that you like were sung and written by other people that didn't perform it and make them popular. And the reason that Glee is so interesting and so great is because Ryan Murphy wrote it. Ryan Murphy, yes. American Horror Story, yes. Ryan Murphy. And so please keep that in mind whenever you decide to discount Glee before you watch it. It's one of the funniest shows I've ever seen in my entire life.
That's definitely not the reason I got out of the league. I mean, that whole argument was I felt stupid. I feel like Damon Albarn of Blur was like, they're never going to use one of our songs because I won't let them. Like, I mean, I like Blur, but like, I don't think they're asking you for any songs unless they're going to sing song 2, which is a song that you hate anyway.
Also, they held the Guinness Book of World Records for highest or most selling singles and songs. They had the most sales on iTunes until Drake broke it in 2019, and Glee premiered in like 2009 or something like that. So anyway, I'm going off on a rant. Don't mind me, Eric.
No, I mean they definitely brought forth. I feel like Duck Sauce, Barbra Streisand, became a lot more popular because of Glee. I feel like Heads Will Roll by Yeah Yeah Yeahs was already a big hit, but I felt like that kind of took it to another level.
And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because we were talking about like some of those songs, and they sing all of those songs you were talking about earlier on Glee.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I think that, bringing us back to kind of closing everything out, these songs are, you had said that, this episode could be Degrassi : Songs of My Youth. And Degrassi and these songs are kind of synonymous because they are a part of your youth. Do you have any final thoughts on Degrassi? Or is it Degrassi or Degrassi? Because I feel like I say it both ways. And
say whichever way you'd like to, just like you can say sorry or sorry. You know what I mean? And so, honestly, my final thoughts are music is such an integral part of the show. Not only from people actually performing songs and creating music on the show, the actors bringing in their own talents into the situation, but also what they reference. It's so cool and so important, and got me through my youth. So thank you for inviting me to talk about it. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate you coming on and talking and educating me on Degrassi. My wife will be very happy to.
Hi, Sean. I love you.
Do you have anything to plug? Anything you want to add?
I always say listen to the Wayne Holtz Podcast. We got a lot of stuff going on over there. And then just follow Wayne Holtz in general. You never know what this little bitch is going to be up to.
You've had Degrassi stars on your podcast, right?
I've had 4. I've had the gentleman that shot Drake. I've had Jay. I've had Andrea Lewis, who was one of the most prominent and interesting black stars of the beginning of the show before they gave black characters prominence. And who's the other one? Oh, we won't talk about him.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Wayne. I really appreciate you coming through.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.